On Wednesday of the week that all of this happened, I contacted Gloria Walker to let her know that I would be resigning from my position as the Associate Director of Campus Ministries because my husband had taken a job in Pennsylvania and I was planning to move to be with him. Thursday morning, around 9:15, Chad called myself and Michelle and asked us to meet him at the Campus Ministries house and told us that he had resigned from his position as the Director of Campus Ministries. Prior to that, he had not told me that he was planning to resign. In fact, when I gave him my resignation, he was very disappointed because he was looking forward to us continuing to work together. And I think anybody who knows Chad and knows his love for Carson-Newman would know that it would be a stretch for him to choose to resign. He has been working here for 13 years, so it took a little while to get his stuff packed up, but he had until the next day, 24 hours, to get his things out. I truly have never met someone who loves Carson-Newman more than Chad Morris. So we were all heartbroken. I think it's the best way to put it.
Roughly 30 miles east of Knoxville, Tennessee, on the banks of Mossy Creek, is a small Christian liberal arts institution that has been creating a legacy for itself for well over 150 years. Carson-Newman University, for those who have attended, represents far more than simply an alma mater. But as is the case with any academic institution, unique challenges have arisen over the years.
So at Carson-Newman, there's always a tension. And that tension is, how do we faithfully teach Scripture and faith in a way that coincides with our traditional commitments, the Baptist faith and message and our Baptist heritage, but also explores emerging dimensions of what faith looks like in the 21st century. People within our Carson-Newman family don't always agree on what those faithful expressions should look like. But what's beautiful about Carson-Newman is that it's a special and sacred place where those conversations can be had in love and grace and humility. And everything under that framework of love is always being worked out in the context of disagreement.
In the center of this complex relationship the university has with theology, there is a small facet known as campus ministries.
Most of the campus ministers in the state are hired by the Tennessee Baptist Convention, but we are hired by Carson-Newman, and as such, we were responsible for planning all of the chapel services, working with other committees across campus, and so we were highly integrated into the work of the institution.
If you don't mind me asking, what does a campus minister do on a daily basis?
On a daily basis, we are teachers, we are mentors, spiritual guides, or just helping students along the way.
This is Chad Morris, and in August of 2000, he began a journey with Carson-Newman University that would last nearly 20 years. After graduating in 2003, then attending divinity school from 2004 to 2007, he returned to Mossy Creek to become the Associate Director of Campus Ministries, a position he held for 12 years until finally he was promoted to Director in July of 2019. At the same time, Carson-Newman University officially named its 23rd president, Dr. Charles A. Fowler, a Baptist minister from a large church outside of Memphis, Tennessee. And while to some outsiders, a minister serving as the president of a liberal arts institution may come as a surprise, considering just how strong the school's ties are to the Southern Baptist Convention and the Tennessee Baptist Convention, it makes a lot of sense. Now, I am in no way saying that Dr. Fowler is not qualified for the position. He has had a remarkably successful career that spans multiple layers of higher education. But I think it says a lot that a majority of the coverage that surrounded him as he was being ushered in revolved around his time as a Baptist minister. By nominating Dr. Fowler and the subsequent very public reaffirmation of Baptist ideals, the university helped solidify funding from the SBC and other Baptist organizations who otherwise might not have been as inclined. Stories like this are far from abnormal, and the reality is money carries influence. It's really difficult to survive in this day and age as a small private university, let alone one that exists in a small town that not a lot of people know about. I love Carson-Newman, and the last thing I would ever want to see is my alma mater disappear. So while the possibility of a lot of changes happening had me uncertain about the future of the university, I was hopeful.
I have worked here for 8 years, and I was a student here for 4, and there have been so many people during my time working here as well as my time as a student who had put in the same amount of time, that, if not more or even less than Chad had, who were given send-offs, parties, celebrations, a proper goodbye, and Chad did not get any of those things.
So I would imagine the letter shook things up quite a bit.
Oh, the letter. Yes, it did.
I got this letter in the mail on July 15th, and it came anonymously in an envelope. I called up a lot of the people that I know that still work in the administration, and the story completely checked out. It was unfortunately all very true. Having worked with Chad very closely in my time at Carson-Newman, I knew it was important to help get this out as much as I could. When I shared it on Facebook, I included that in the attachment. I think by that night it had already received like 70 shares, which for a small Carson-Newman community is like a significant portion of our population.
I don't know who wrote the letter. I really don't. What I know about the situation, the letter is true, and that's hard.
Last week, Carson-Newman administrators made the disheartening decision to force Reverend Chad Morris out of his position as campus minister at Carson-Newman. On top of that disturbing decision, their treatment of him during the process was insulting and despicable and unbecoming of any university. Chad Morris was given the choice of resigning or being fired. No other options were offered. Upon resigning, Chad Morris was informed that access to his Carson-Newman account, emails, computer files, etc. had been cut off, that he needed to turn in his keys and Carson-Newman employee ID by 4 p.m. that day, and he needed to have everything moved out of his office within approximately 24 hours. Fact: Chad Morris had an unblemished record of ethical accountability, moral uprightness, and unceasing loyalty to Carson-Newman. Fact: Chad Morris was not presented with any legitimate cause for the termination of his employment. Fact: Chad Morris was not given any opportunity by the current administration to address any specific grievances they had regarding the quality of his work. Fact: by offering Chad Morris the merciful option of resigning, they ensured that he cannot in any way apply for unemployment benefits. As a Carson-Newman alumni, this information was incredibly disappointing, and much like a lot of individuals who shared it and read it online, I wanted answers. Of course, Carson-Newman University has every right to dismiss employees as they see fit, but as an institution who champions Christian ideals, why was this situation handled in a manner so egregiously void of grace and love for an individual who's exhibited literally nothing but that for 13 years of committed service? It just felt hypocritical, especially considering how difficult the pandemic has made finding a stable job for a lot of people. And Chad has a young family. Obviously, we can't go back in time. What's done is done, and a bridge that a lot of people thought would last for decades has been burned. But I can't help but wonder if the individual or individuals who made the decision to dismiss Chad so abruptly even knew who he really was and what he meant to us. Because the truth is, without Chad Morris, Carson-Newman University would have been a very different place.
Without Chad Morris, I don't think I would have graduated college.
Without Chad Morris, I would not be who I am today.
Without Chad, I would not have the confidence of who I am as a minister.
Without Chad Morris, I would never have had the opportunity to be a chaplain in a dorm at Carson-Newman University.
Without Chad, I would not be in vocational ministry.
Without Chad, I would not have grown as much personally and spiritually while at Carson-Newman.
Without Chad Morris, I never would have had the encouragement that I needed to step out as a leader in my Christian community.
Without Chad, I don't think I would have gained the appreciation and the perspective that I have of other cultures and other people groups around the world.
Without Chad, I could not have wonderful experience during Spot.
Without Chad, I don't think I would have found the career that I'm in now in social work.
We wouldn't even be married without you.
It's true.
Without Chad, I don't know that I would be a Christian.
Without Chad Morris, I don't believe I would be alive today. Back in my sophomore year at Carson-Newman, he showed up at the dorm during an emergency mental health call that the residents' life called on my behalf. I was going through some really tough stuff and I didn't really know what to do or what to believe anymore. And Chad sat with me for a few moments and just talked to me about the hope and the love of Jesus and the value that I had.
Without Chad, I would not have had a crying session every week. I would go into his office and cry about something, and I think it's beautiful that he would be so open and kind, and that just is a testament of who he is.
At Carson-Newman, I didn't really feel like I had a place to fit in, and then I met Chad. We spent quite a bit of time talking about my parents' divorce, which I think was a can of worms that you didn't realize you were opening, but it was the first time that I'd ever talked to anyone about it without trying to hold back tears, because I couldn't.
I'd grown up in a Christian household and had been burned by the church a few times, and my parents had been burned and were no longer attending church, and so by the time I ended up at Carson-Newman, I was kind of done with God, with religion. Somehow, my freshman year at Carson-Newman, I ended up at a BCM meeting.
Without Chad Morris, BCM wouldn't have been the same, where myself and many other students had the opportunity to worship and to grow in our faith and to ask great questions.
Chad was my connection to BCM, way more than he can ever imagine. I was confused, I was hurt, and having a heart-to-heart conversation with Chad in his office, he was a light that led me to want to keep coming back.
You really helped us to become more intentional people, to become more caring and empathetic people.
Chad believed deeply about the students at Carson-Newman, believed in God's call in their life, and came alongside them and encouraged them and equipped them to use their gifts in the community.
He just taught all of us so much about truth and beauty and goodness. He set an example for students, faculty, and alumni.
Chad Morris was a wonderful campus minister.
His legacy goes far beyond the walls of this institution.
I can never thank Chad Morris enough for his leadership, his mentorship, and his friendship.
Thank you, Chad Morris.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chad, for your service to Carson-Newman.
Thank you, Chad, for sometimes dragging me and encouraging me and spurring me on to think outside myself.
Thank you, Chad!
Chad Morris, thank you so much. I'm so happy that you were part of my life.
To Chad.
Is there anything that you might want to share?
Thank you, guys. And it has been a privilege and an honor. Christ is my calling, but you are the reason I do what I do. And so, thank you. It means a lot.
I want to take a brief moment to share just a few closing thoughts with y'all, and these are entirely my own opinions. Something that Dr. Fowler mentioned several times during his inauguration speech was his desire to guide Carson-Newman University towards God's preferred future. And while I entirely agree that seeking God's guidance in our lives is remarkably important as we take steps into the future, I want to lovingly remind those in authority at the university I admire so much that God has been doing wonderful things at Carson-Newman well before the university made the decision to strictly realign and reaffirm its connection to a specific denominational creed. And if the goal is to clean house and only bring in individuals who agree 100% with each other, you're compromising the very thing that made Carson-Newman so special in the first place. Now, I'm not saying Chad was forced out for religious differences. He was an ordained Baptist minister, and I'm quite certain theology had nothing to do with the situation. But the reason myself and so many others are upset about this is because Chad Morris and other individuals like him represented the best side of the university. Chad being forced out, coupled with the emphasis placed on the reaffirmation of Southern Baptist ideals, scares me a little bit. I am very aware that change happens over time. I just don't want the heart of Carson-Newman to be lost during this process. There is a profound opportunity for spiritual growth and development when we allow ourselves to see outside of the self-constructed boxes all of us inhabit. And that's exactly what this place did for me. Carson-Newman University isn't special because of its Baptist heritage. It's special because it showed people like myself and many others how to love, care, and respect individuals who thought differently than we did. Because ultimately, Strong denominational affiliation means very little in the absence of grace and love. Thank you for watching.